please. Lord, for the sake of all living things, may my words not be trite. For the sake of all living things, may your word be heard. O Lord, our rock and our redeemer, you, not me, me. 2 weeks ago, on Sunday morning, I was out here before the service. I was out at the pet waste station emptying the bag. And this woman comes along, a woman I'd never seen before. Turns out her name was Jackie. She had a dog with her, a small white dog, who turned out to be a service dog, and Jackie was dog sitting. And Jackie said the first words out of her mouth were, "Boy, these college kids make me so angry." And I thought, okay. And she said again, "Boy, these college kids make me so angry." And I said, "Excuse me, college kids?" I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Was there some kind of party out here last night or something?" And she goes, "No, she goes, these college kids, they walk their dogs over here and then they don't clean up after them." Now, I don't know why Jackie made the association of people doing that, letting their dogs go to the bathroom around the church and not picking up after themselves. But for Jackie, for some reason, they were college kids. I know you'll see people out there in T-shirts that say UConn and Madison football, what have you. So maybe she saw some of those people, and I know they're a dog too, but maybe she saw some of those people, but for some reason she was convinced that college kids were letting their dogs go to the bathroom around the church, and she was picking up after them, which I really appreciated. But anyway, I'm not sure how Jackie was making that association, but last Sunday I was out here right off the Crusader porch, right behind the cross, and there were 2 places where dogs had gone to the bathroom and no one had picked up after them. So I'm picking up the messes, and I'm thinking about what Jackie had said the week before, and it hit me as I'm doing this. It hit me that even though people let their dogs go to the bathroom around the church or outside the church, we still have to be invitational to those people, don't we? Even if people let their dogs go to the bathroom around the church, we still have to be invitational to those people. Lo and behold, as I'm doing this, Sarah Fitchett comes along, and I tell Sarah the whole story about what had happened with Jackie the week before, about what had happened with her comments on the college kids, and about how I had just been picking up after dog owners, and it hit me. It hit me that we still have to invite people who let their dogs go to the bathroom around here. We still have to invite them to church. We still have to be invitational to them. And it hit me, that's a kind of tension, isn't it? That's a kind of tension, because how do we do that? How do we do that? How do we be nice to people if people don't necessarily respect the property? How do we be nice to people if people don't necessarily respect us? How can we be invitational with people who let their dogs go to the bathroom out there, who litter the parking lot with cigarette butts? To me, that's the big problem out there. It's not the dogs, it's the cigarettes. Now, how can we be nice to people who bring trucks into the parking lot when we ask them not to, because it's a safety issue, because there are some parents coming and going from the day school all day here? How do we deal with that tension? How do we deal with that tension and still remain invitational, still remain a church of Jesus Christ? We talked about that last Wednesday here. We talked about that last Wednesday here in chapel, because this is the way I couched it. I was talking to the kids, and for those of you who may not know, we have a day school here with students up to age 4. Some are 5, but usually they go to preschool after that. But we had the kids in here for chapel, and I was talking with them about the impossible. The opening prayer was something along the lines of, "Dear God, thank you for helping us do the impossible." And I talked about Philippians 4, where Paul says, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." And I asked them about what seems impossible, and one little girl, sitting right here on my right, said, lifting up the whole world would seem impossible. So I asked them, how can we do the impossible? How can we be nice to people who might be mean to us? Now, there are certain things the kids have talked about in the going on 4 years that I've been doing the chapel and that I've been here. They talk about Sonic the Hedgehog a lot. Y'all know Sonic the Hedgehog? And they talk about Frozen. They love that movie. I guess Disney hasn't really had anything since Frozen. If they have, I don't know about it. And so I was asking them in shows like Frozen and in movies, shows like Sonic the Hedgehog and movies like Frozen, I was asking them if there were any people who were mean. And they told me in Sonic the Hedgehog, no, there aren't any people who are mean. And they told me in Frozen, I haven't seen Frozen, that at the beginning Elsa is kind of aggressive. I know Elsa's the main character, but that's just at the beginning, I'm told. So I asked them if they could think of any TV shows where there was a character who was mean. And they told me about Paws Patrol. Do you know about a show called Paws Patrol? I don't know this one. Gene Teal, our minister of music, has given me, because of Paws and Faith, she's given me a tote bag that says Paws Patrol, and she gave us a little balloon that said Paws Patrol, so I'm somewhat aware of Paws Patrol, but I didn't know that there's a character in Paws Patrol named Mayor Humdinger, and apparently he is. Mayor Humdinger of Foggy Bottom, that's the town where they live. And Mayor Humdinger is mean. Mayor Humdinger, I guess he doesn't want to stay in office, he cheats, he steals, he stole someone's steering wheel out of their car, and so Mayor Humdinger is mean. And so I asked the kids, if Mayor Humdinger is mean, how do the other characters in Paws Patrol treat him? And they said they're nice to him. They said that they try to help him. And so I guess somehow on Paws Patrol, they can manage the tension of having someone who's not nice to them, and yet they can be nice in return. So how do we manage that tension? With what goes on in our parking lot, with what goes on the grass outside. How do we manage the tension of being invitational with people who aren't necessarily nice to us, with people who don't necessarily respect our property? How can we be faithful? How can we be godly in dealing with tension such as this? And despite the tension present in creation, Romans 8 reminds us that God's plan sees us as part of the redemption of creation. See, creation is like us. The earth is God's and everything in it. Creation is like us. The earth is God's and everything in it is God's as well. The earth is God's. The earth belongs to God. We belong to God. We are God's. And once upon a time, at the very beginning, we were made stewards of the earth, of all creation. But then we, humankind, we blew it, didn't we? We blew it because our grandest parents, and by saying our grandest parents, who do I mean? Adam and Eve, right? Adam and Eve, our grandest parents, had dominion over creation. God gave it to them, and they blew it. Our family blew it. We blew it. Since we blew it and got impatient, all of creation, us too, we were all subjected to all sorts of things. Because we blew it, we were subjected to things like pain in childbirth. Weren't some of us? Because we blew it, we've been subjected to things like toiling with sweat on our brows. It gets hot out there when I'm picking up the parking lot. Because we blew it, even snakes in the ground were cursed, and even creation was subjected to imprisonment. The earth is God's and everything in it. And God gave us dominion over creation, and we blew it. We got impatient, and we blew it. But God has glorious plans for us, up to and including the redemption of creation. God is working still to make us perfect in this lifetime through the inspiration of His Holy Spirit. God is working to bring creation back to what it once was, and us back to what we once were. And one glorious day, all creation will see this together. One glorious day, all of creation together will see the redemption of the children of God. Now, until then, we in creation groan in bondage as God decreed, but one day, all of creation will see this together. And won't that be nice? Won't that be nice when things get back to the way that they were created? When we get back to the way that we were created? When all of creation, per God's plan, stops groaning and is redeemed, won't that be great? That day when we are redeemed as the children of God. It can't get here fast enough, can it? This cannot get here fast enough. We cannot wait until that day when the groaning and moaning cease and we are revealed and redeemed as the children of God, and all creation rejoices together. It can't get here fast enough, but we have to wait for it. We have to wait for it, and we don't like waiting, do we? No one likes waiting, do they? Let me ask you this. When did people in the Bible start running out of patience? Think about that. When did people in the Bible start running out of patience? It's the very beginning, isn't it? It started to say creation. That's about the timing, isn't it? When did people start running out of patience in the Bible? When did Adam and Eve start running out of patience? When did they run out of patience, and what became of that? We've already talked about some of it. That's why creation is groaning even until now. What became of Adam and Eve's getting impatient? That's what we're talking about this morning. When did Sarah run out of patience? Not Sarah Fitchett. The title of this sermon is The Tensions of Sarah times 2. Sarah Fitchett's one because of the conversation we had last week. The biblical Sarah is the other. When did Sarah in Genesis run out of patience? God had promised her an heir, her and Abraham an heir. So when did Sarah run out of patience? And what became of that? We talked about that a few weeks ago, didn't we? Jumping over to the New Testament, some even think that Judas ran out of patience, that Judas betrayed Jesus just because Judas wanted to force Jesus' hands and reveal Jesus' messiahship by betraying him. Now, if we subscribe to that school of thought, then when did Judas run out of patience? When did Judas run out of patience, and what came of it for everyone, including him? We don't like waiting. No one does. When did people run out of patience in the Bible, and what became of it? When do we run out of patience, even with creation? And what becomes of it? What becomes of it when we run out of patience? How can we wait constructively and faithfully? A glorious day of redemption is coming for us, as the Bible says, and for all creation. That's God's plan. How do we wait for that with any part of creation that we can control? How can we here wait faithfully? How can we deal with creation and with tension while waiting for redemption? It's kind of what we talked about in chapel last week, kind of what I talked about with Sarah last Sunday. How do we deal with the tension of being invitational to neighbors who may not be nice to us? I said that I was picking up dog waste behind the cross here right off the Crusader porch, and we know that people let their dogs go there. That's not news. There's been talk of putting up signs out there, small signs that just say, "Please curb your pet." Now let me ask you this. If we're a church, should we put up a sign that just says, "Please curb your pet"? And see, the key word there is just as well as church. If we're a church, we are a church, aren't we? We're a church, I think. Since we're a church, should we put up a sign that just says, "Please curb your pet"? No, I don't think so. And this didn't hit me till last week. This is what I was talking about the kids with last Wednesday in chapel. If we're going to put up a sign that says, "Please curb your pet," shouldn't it say something like, "Please join us," and "Please curb your pet"? You know, "Please join us here at Epworth, come to Epworth, and please curb your pet"? Shouldn't we say more as a church than just "Please curb your pet" on any signs that we put out there? There is a lot that goes on in the parking lot. There's a lot of foot traffic. Now, I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. If our neighbors are going through the alley and through our parking lot to get to their cars in the parking garage, I think that's a good thing, because you know what I think? I think that is a fertile ground for invitation. I think that's about the best thing the church could ever ask for, to have people walking through its parking lot to get from their apartments, their condos, to their cars. I think that gives us a great chance of invitation. I don't like it that they leave their cigarette butts out there. I think if we need signs, they need to say, "Please don't smoke," or "Please join us at Epworth," and "Please don't smoke." But I was thinking, to me, that's not the problem. It's not that people cut through the parking lot. It's not, even though they smoke in the parking lot, it's not that they walk their dogs in the parking lot. Really, the problem with the parking lot is the trucks. Trucks come in during business hours. The day school had to run 2 trucks off last week. Trucks come in during business hours. It is a hazard for students and parents at the day school. There was one day last week, I think when I was on my way Thursday to visit Mary Lee Lowe, there was one day that a truck was actually backed up into the alley. Now, I don't know if that truck was there for the day school or not for the day school. I just knew I had to get to Mary Lee's, so I was in a rush to get over there. I don't know if that truck was day school or not, but can we afford during business hours to have a truck backed up into that alley? Because you know how narrow that space is. For safety reasons, can we afford to have a truck backed up into that alley, and how can we make sure that doesn't happen? How can we, if we have to address that, how can we do that constructively? What's the best way to do it? It hit me last week. Why don't we get an architect's opinion? We have one architect in the church that I know of. I won't mention their name because I've never met them. Starting my 4th year now, I've never met them. And I called last week and left a message, so we'll see if I get a call back. But why don't we get an architect to look at that and tell us what might be the best solution, not just the impatient solution, but the best solution? What do we need to do out there to keep trucks from blocking the alley? I was thinking, you know what, maybe we could do something creative, like put a garden out there. A garden that the day school kids could tend or till. It may not be at all feasible, but would we have to raise it up? How could we do that? Is that something we can look at? Something constructive that we can put out there, something creative. If not to block foot traffic, then to discourage trucks from going up there and actually blocking the alley. If the problem is a truck backing into the alley and blocking it, do we need to do something that comes out into the parking lot? Do we need to do something that comes flush with the parking spaces so that if a car is parked there, or there would be at least a car length between any place a truck could stop in the alley? What do we need to do? What's the creative solution? We'll see if I hear from the architect. Maybe I won't. If not, maybe I can find an architect through the Rotary who can talk to me, since I'm a member of the Rotary. No one person has all the answers to problems about the parking lot or what have you. No one person has all the answers, and if we get impatient, what can happen? Let's work together, creatively and faithfully, on solutions. Let's find ways, even when people aren't nice to us, to be invitational. And it is tension. This is tension we're talking about. So how do we live in this tension? How do we wait constructively and faithfully without rushing things and running out of patience? What from our waiting, what from our period of waiting to be redeemed, from that time, what can we produce for God? Amen. Thanks be to God.